The Colfax Massacre Site: Reconstruction-Era Violence, Justice, and Public Memory, Colfax, Louisiana. The Colfax Massacre of 1873 was one of the deadliest racial massacres in U.S. history. It occurred during the Reconstruction era in Colfax, Louisiana, a time of intense political and racial conflict. The massacre took place in Colfax, Louisiana, the parish seat of Great Parish. The violence centered on a local courthouse which became the main site of the attack. Reconstruction followed the Civil War of 1865 to 1877 and aimed to rebuild the South. During this period, newly freed African Americans gained citizenship and voting rights, reshaping Southern politics. White supremacist groups strongly resisted black political power after the war. Election disputes were common, and violence was often used to overturn Republican victories supported by black voters. Louisiana's 1872 gubernatorial elections were highly contested. Both Democrats and Republicans claimed victory, turning local offices into battlegrounds for political control. In Great Parish, Republican office included many black citizens. White Democrats rejected election results and began organizing armed resistance. The courthouse symbolizes lawful government and democratic authority. Because of this, it became a primary target for white supremacist groups and the focal point for the violence. White supremacist militias included former Confederate soldiers. They were heavily armed with rifles and artillery and motivated by the desire to maintain racial and political control. On Easter Sunday, white mobs surrounded the courthouse in Colfax. They launched an armed assault against black defenders who were vastly outnumbered. Attackers used cannon fire against the courthouse and set fires to force people out. No federal troops were present to protect the defenders or stop the violence. Black defenders eventually surrendered after being promised safety. Despite these assurances, many were executed by the attacking mob. An estimated 300 black men were killed during this massacre. Victims were shot, beaten, or burned, and many bodies were dumped into mass graves. Only 3 white attackers were reportedly killed. This extreme imbalance highlights the one-sided and racially motivated nature of this kind of violence. After the massacre, white Democrats seized control of Grant Parish. Republican leadership collapsed, and black political participation was violently suppressed. Some attackers were arrested and charged under the Enforcement Act. These laws were intended to protect black people's voting rights and combat racial violence. The case United States versus Kernshank reached the Supreme Court. The court overturned the convictions, ruling that the federal government has limited power to protect prosecuted individuals. This ruling placed responsibility for civil rights enforcement on the states rather than federal government. This weakened protection for black Americans and encouraged future racial violence. The Colfax Massacre contributed to the rise of Jim Crow laws across the South. It led to widespread black disenfranchisement and an increase in lynching. For decades, the massacre was minimized or ignored in public memory. Early historical markers even praised the attackers, while the victims remain largely unnamed. Today, the site is recognized for its historical significance, modern scholarship center of experience of black victims and identity in the massacres as an act of racial terrorism. The Colfax massacre reveals the limits and failures of Reconstruction. It exposed the roots of systematic racism and shows the devastating consequences of unchecked racial violence.